Anderson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, deep ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is up, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. We are joined by former All-American tight end for your UCLA Bruins, now working for ESPN as a color commentator, Mr. Charles Arbuckle, a.k.a. Buck. Buck, what's going on, buddy? It's good to see you since the last time we've chatted.
Yeah, man, this was crazy. I'm just here in Charlotte. Been kind of following the Bruins, keeping up with them. I was happy to see Deshaun get hired there. And, just an opportunity for him to come back home. And after having to leave for just a short period of time, I thought that was outstanding. And I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about is I know what he'll bring from the recruiting standpoint, but also you can already see Eric Bieniemy coming on board. I've known Eric a long time as well, having played around the same time, and we play the Bengals a couple times a year, or once a year at least, when back in the day. So, I think I'm excited about the charge now of feeling like they want to compete. I didn't always feel that way with Chip. Just being totally candid, I felt like he would be more content to sit in a room and talk about X's and O's instead of going to find talent. And I think we're going to see a difference there. How that looks with the O-line and D-line this year is a big concern, but I think you got to have guys that want to compete and want to fight every day, and I think we have that now.
Yeah, and let's start from the top, man. So your initial reaction, Chip leaves not to be a head coach, but he goes to be an offensive coordinator at the college level for a team we're going to be playing within the same conference. Very kind of confusing situation on the surface for a lot of people that follow the program. 35 and 34 in his career at UCLA, 500 within conference. A lot of the fan base detested Chip in a lot of ways. I was in kind of the camp where, I covered the team. I just kind of have my opinions on it and let it be. Yeah. But getting Deshaun Foster in here, I think it would take somebody that's completely blind to see what he has done in his first month. And all you can really go off of is on paper stuff. We have yet to see on field. But how he's getting out in the community, the press conference where the emotions are pouring out of him. He's crying. He wants to be a part of the UCLA community. He's at the basketball game against USC, helping the fan base. Yeah. He's in the recruiting trail hard. We just got one of the top young receivers in Southern California to commit here, and a guy by the name of Jonas Smith, who was a modern day kid.
And that's hard to see the modern day. I think for you guys that are out west, I know this because I've been there. Modern day is generally a USC school, right? I mean, we get modern day kids, but the same way with Long Beach Poly. Remember, a lot of those kids ended up going like Mark Carrier and some of the other ones. They were generally a SC-based school. Well, when you have other guys that decide to say no, like Mercedes Lewis, who's an LB Poly guy.
Yeah.
So I've always been fascinated with the talent level in California, because having to come play out there, you get to know people, you learn. I still have ties out there. My daughter's actually living in LA now. It's good to hear when you start getting those kind of kids, because they're well coached in high school. They're going to play well in college, and they want to stay home, and they don't want to go over to the Trojans, which is always a good thing for us as a Bruin fan.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see the early results, man.
Yeah.
Just from the surface, I think it's hard not to give him a grade of A right now, but where were you when you heard the Deshaun news, and how excited have you been, and how excited should this fan base be with Deshaun Foster moving forward as the head coach for UCLA?
I'll tell you this. I didn't think, Will, that he would get the job, because I just heard some word that he wasn't going to be considered when Chip was doing his dalliances with all the NFL teams and looking to move out of UCLA, and we all could see it. The worst thing that could have happened for us this year, and I think you and I were sending some direct messages back and forth, the worst thing that could have happened for UCLA was beating SC this year, because it gave Chip an opportunity to stay. Now, what I've told people is I'm not going to berate Chip. I'm not going to beat him up. He did what he thought was best for him. But what was the disappointing thing is it allowed a guy like Deshaun Foster to leave and possibly not even be looked at, and then other people that we had opportunities to do. Ultimately, I think it was by saving grace that people started talking to Martin Jarman, and he finally figured out that this would be the best person to have on the staff. I've known Deshaun for a number of years. He played with the Carolina Panthers. Every time I'm there, I'd sit in his office, we would talk. I didn't know for sure, but once I started texting him to see that it was just a real legitimate opportunity for him, I got excited because I knew not only would he bring a real strong staff, but he will bring a certain fight that I want to see from the Bruins. The same fight that you had early on with some of Rick's guys that stayed with Jim Moore, the fight that Bob Toledo had, the fight that we had. Those are the things that I know Deshaun knows because we were around him and he saw that and he knew, being a California kid, that he always wanted to be a Bruin. So that's the part to me that right away I was like, this is what I want to see. Now, seeing the coaches that are on the staff, seeing the people, seeing the link back to tradition that we've always had, I think that's really important for anybody that's been a UCLA fan to understand. And Eric Bieniemy understands it because he's a Cali guy. He knows having been recruited, having been a coach on the staff before, and then also not having the opportunity to be a head coach has granted us an opportunity to give him that chance to show what he can do. So I'm really excited about it, man. I think, now I know that they're serious about playing football consistently every single week.
Yeah, and, we got to talk about our guy EB too, but the point I want to bring to you as a former Bruin is what does it mean to have, Deshaun Foster, Robert Thomas, former Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, now the new linebackers coach there, Jerry Neuheisel, who is on the team as well, selling the program, Bruins selling future Bruins to potentially come to UCLA. I think that makes a difference because you love and you care about the place where I think in the coaching profession, you got to understand a lot of people are looking at the program and the job as a whole as, hey, this is my job today. I could be looking at another job in the future, things like that. Whereas these guys, they're grounded and they love UCLA. How much of an advantage is that? Do you believe in the recruiting trail for UCLA?
Oh, I think it's real because you can tell them, when people ask me and kids ask me about my experience at UCLA, I can't tell them enough good things about it. I mean, we still have a group of guys that we still keep in contact with. Daryl Henley was just released from prison this week, and the number of outpouring of Bruins that just, hey, happy to have you home, reaching out to them. Those are the kind of things that if you're not inside the program, you don't know. And I think that's the same thing with the guys that have been there before. I hate that Ken is no longer there. I thought Ken gave him some fun. Yeah, Ken understood. I battled Ken every day for 2 years as a young pup, so I know his love and understanding of the Bruin family. But I think what we have now and what the school has now are guys that understand that and want to do everything they can to, play at the highest level, beat SC, but be in contention to win a championship. And that part I'm really excited about because I think that's the thing that we've been missing for the last few years. Is it going to happen next year? Probably not. But will they have fight? Will they have guys that want to go out and compete? And, it looks like there's no chance they can beat Michigan or Ohio State, but play and be competitive and be consistently competitive is what I want to see.
Man, we want the same things for UCLA moving forward. And Eric Bieniemy, man, I mean, this was a guy that I think in a lot of ways deserved a legitimate shot at being a head coach in the NFL. If you look at his track record with Andy Reid, I mean, this is the best coach in professional football right now. He's won back-to-back, NFL Super Bowls. Bieniemy was his right-hand man for close to a decade. So having that lineage from Andy Reid, and like you mentioned earlier, Buck, this guy was the running backs coach for your Maurice Jones-Drew, who's probably been the most successful running back at the professional level for the past 20 to 25 years. Went to Lamont High School out in Southern California. Talk to me about what type of guy EB is and what he's going to bring. I know he's a very intense coach. He's going to kind of get into you, get on you in practice, but it ultimately is for the goal of making the team better.
Well, Will, I mean, I never would have got on the field if I didn't have Ken Norton pushing me or James Washington or Carnell Lake or Marcus Patton, Roman Pfeiffer, or, It was 35 guys during my time that ended up playing in the league. Some had a cup of coffee. Some played 5 years like me. Some played are Hall of Famers. Troy Aikman. I didn't even name Troy, but every day you stepped on the field, you had to compete. That's what Eric brings to them. That's what Deshaun already brought. But I think the accountability to compete every day is the thing that I know to be true with Eric Bieniemy. If you compete, you have no problem with him. If you don't show up every single day, that little sawed-off dude will get in your stuff, rightfully so, because that's what made him successful as a player. That's what made him successful coaching Adrian Peterson. Yeah. When you have guys that want to be good, you got to coach. You can't just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to let you go do what you do, because that's not how it is. When I hear Patrick Mahomes saying, EB forced me to be better. Now, Patrick Mahomes is at the top of the food chain, right? So why can't Patrick Mahomes be coached as hard as the 53rd guy on the roster? Tiger Woods talked about it. I need to be coached. Great players and great athletes need to be coached. And I don't think people realize that. Did I always love my coaches at UCLA? Hell no. Do I respect them and love them now? Yes, because they got the best out of me. And I think that's what you want to see every single day. And already we have people coming to UCLA to work out, to be around the program. Now you have guys that will have people coming in like Mahomes, if he's on the West Coast shooting a video, to talk to the quarterbacks there. Travis Kelce to go play catch with them and show the young tight ends, or other people that EB has coached and Deshaun has coached now. That's what you have at UCLA that you want to see brought back consistently. Guys wanting to come back. Mercedes Lewis wanting to come and impart some of his wisdom on what it will take to play 20 years or 19 years in the league. Those are the kind of things that we haven't had over the last few years that I think will change now that you have a coaching staff that wants to bring that culture back.
Yeah, and that was one of the selling points I was talking about with EB too, is like, if you're trying to pitch a young quarterback to come to UCLA, who do you want to be like? Just who do you want to be like? Top of your head, you're going, I want to be like Mahomes. He's the best. Let's FaceTime him right now. Let's get him on the phone. Do you want to talk to him?
Yes.
Pick his brain a little bit. What a recruiting tool that is. And I mean, Buck, you're a tight end. Travis Kelce has been at the top of that food chain for a couple of years at the very least right now. So come on, what a tool that is to have that in your back pocket. I love the EB hire, man. I love how the coaching staff is shaking out right now. And there's just so many good stuff. I got to ask you about your buddy, Ken Norton Jr., because I think on the outside looking in, man, he is just a certified badass in so many different ways. You know, first team All-American. I think he won 3 to 4 Super Bowls in the NFL. His pops took down the legendary Muhammad Ali. Like, what a story that is. And, you know,
you know what's funny? Will, his dad was such a mild-mannered guy when we would meet him. You know, he'd come around and he was really easy to talk to. You couldn't believe, like, I love boxing. So as a guy that loved boxing, I couldn't believe this guy got in there and battled. But he was a warrior. Ken, on the other hand, talked. And maybe his dad did, but just around us, he was just so quiet and just, you know, graceful with his time, you know, and we loved spending time with him because he was always around campus, being that they were from California. Ken, on the other hand, from the day I stepped on the field as a tight end going against a linebacker, he would talk from the minute practice started. And it was funny, as I got him a few times, he would get me, he would talk, but he knew, like, I don't, that doesn't bother me. You know, you're not going to get in my head. I think that's why I played so early, because none of those guys could, you know, basically intimidate me. I was like, look, man, I grew up in Houston. I played against dudes that are bad as y'all. I just want to be better. And I think the one thing is, I always say, that's why I was able to play at such a high level, but also that's why I played in the league, because of the battles that I had every day with guys like Ken Norton and, you know, Mike Lotus, and just the many guys that I played against every single day in practice got me better. The games were easy sometimes compared to what I had to go through in practice every day. Yeah, and iron sharpens iron, man. If you want to be the best, I really see the appeal of going to a place like an Alabama or a Georgia, and hopefully UCLA translates to that with this new recruiting that we're getting out there and getting Bruins. But iron sharpens irons. You want to be the best, you got to surround yourself with some of the best players and go against them each and every day in practice. You mentioned the other thing, Will, is that we had, Bill Reese, who was the recruiting coordinator for Terry Donahue, recruited across the country. And Texas was one area where it was, we got a lot of kids, myself and about 3 other, Reggie Moore, my college roommate, but they recruited nationally. Frank Cornish from Chicago, Alan Dow from Alabama, Tommy Taylor from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I mean, there were guys that could come and play and competed with the California guys and made it a collective whole. That's what I want to see again, because so many students want to get into UCLA. Why don't we have the same amount of athletes that want to come play there every single week?
I think they do. It just was such a lethargic recruiting effort. I mean,
I agree.
We've talked about this for a long time, but the MVP of the Rose Bowl this year was a national champion defensive lineman named Mason Graham, who went to Irvine High School in Southern California. He's on the record saying my dream school was UCLA. They didn't even come near me. And this was not like, an underrated 2-star prospect where the majority of schools missed him. He was a legitimate 4-star guy.
Yeah.
I
saw him play at the Rose Bowl. He's really good.
He made the play of the game, where they had to get the stop on 4th and goal, and he was the guy that stumped them. So, I think what I'm looking for is, yes, getting back on that national footprint. They've got to really take advantage of the recruiting that's now going to be taking place in Big Ten country, because you're now a part of that brand. Go out there and get those guys. Get the guys in Texas. Get the guys in Florida. But also, I mean, I'm a football historian. I love watching the history of college football. The 30 for 30 on Miami, Howard Schnellenberger at Miami, he protected the area of Miami U. And you're not going to get everybody because you're competing against that school down in South Central Los Angeles. But make sure you get yours. You know what I'm saying? Get those guys to come on in. So there's a lot to be grateful with that. Next question I got for you, my man. We've talked about you coming from Houston to LA. Our viewers and listeners love Terry Donahue stories and stuff like that. Can you tell me what your recruiting weekend was like coming to Los Angeles? What was your first interactions with Terry Donahue on campus?
Yeah, I kind of have to remember if he came to the house first or I came on the visit first. I mean, it's been so many years, but I can remember just him coming to, I lived in the Briargate townhouses right outside Missouri City. So he rolls in and this tan guy, flexing his Rose Bowl ring. Now, mind you, I had Jimmy Johnson come in. I had, Lou Holtz. I had a bunch of, I'm not saying I was a big deal. But I was highly recruited. So, I had a lot of people. But it was something impressive with Coach Donahue. And my mom even noticed that, some of the things, but he was real tan. Looked like he was out of like a Hollywood guy, movie star. And come to find out, Coach Donahue was more than that. He was a fighting guy. I mean, he boxed growing up, so he wasn't a guy you wanted to throw hands with. Yeah, I mean, he had his ability to get with you. I mean, playing a 190-pound defensive lineman, but at the time, you could just tell he had a way of charisma about him. And then when I got on campus, the one thing that was helpful was that Mel Farr was my host, Mel Farr Jr., and then James Primus and all of those guys, they just started showing us a good time. Me and Reggie Moore were both from Houston. We had known each other since Little League football and baseball. They had us out there, and man, we just had such a great time because I had been to California before. I had family out there in South Central and then Pasadena, but I also had been there for a basketball tournament my 7th grade year. So once I got on campus, it felt familiar. It felt familiar, and then I can remember being at practice and watching them get ready for the Rose Bowl that they beat the brakes off of Iowa. And it was something impressive about how they ran practice with Homer Smith, with all of those guys I talked about. Eric Ball spent some time with me, those guys that I got to see the night before hanging out, but when they practiced, how they worked. And that was the thing that was impressive. And, Coach Donahue was like, I think we got you, right? And I'm like, no, I'm going to go on these other trips. But I just kept feeling like UCLA was a place I wanted to be in. Before my trip to Miami, the last week of recruiting that cycle, I said, no, I'm done. I'm going to UCLA, and the rest is kind of history.
The rest is history, and I can say, you made the right choice, man, coming out to be a UCLA Bruin. What was it like to play for Terry D? In the lore, I mean, we have the statue outside the section. I saw all you guys come out for, the unveiling of the statue and everything. Yeah. The legends like yourself, Troy Aikman being out there. What was it like to play for Terry D?
Will, I don't think I appreciated him until I left more, because when you have a coach, you respect them because they have a high amount of what they are able to do and how he's able. But what I've always been impressed with Coach Donahue was his ability to organize and kind of figure things out. His ability to put people in position to make plays, his ability not to be afraid to say to a guy, hey, you may be better served for us here versus there. His coaching staff, all of his coaching staff seem to really have a high understanding of how to get things out of us. And, we got closer after I finished school because I went back one day and, me being the young 20-something-year-old pissed off about why I didn't get drafted higher or whatever. And he and I had a long talk. And after that, he really made me understand how he felt about me and how I was able to convey how I felt about him in an honest way. And not having my dad close when I was younger made him almost feel like a father figure to me. And, sons and fathers don't always agree and see eye to eye. But I think after that point, I really had an appreciation for him, not only being that way with me, but having the relationships with the other guys that came with me and then those that came after me. And, I really, I miss Coach. I miss talking to him. I miss, spending time with him, because when you get older, you look back on things and you say, okay, I can forget how pissed off I was at you about certain things and remember the things that you did help me with and help me become a better man and a father and a husband. So, I'm still close to Miss Donahue and the girls, and he means a lot to me, and I think he means a lot to all of us, just because when you go to a place as a young boy but you come out as a man, there's no better way than to think about that group that you did that with, but also the coach that led you through that.
Yeah, Terry D is such a legend.
Yeah.
May he continue to rest in peace, and
Yeah.
thoughts and prayers with his family still. Buck, you had such a special connection with your quarterback on campus, Troy Aikman. And what I've gotten to thinking is the more I study football, the more I'm in awe of just how difficult the quarterback position is and how to do it at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is talented once you get to the D1 level. And moving forward, when he eventually became a 3-time Super Bowl champion, what, in your opinion, made Troy such a, stellar quarterback? And
Yeah.
Number 1 overall pick, 3-time champ with the Cowboys. Looked at it as like a model of consistency, but man, what to you, because you were in the practices each and every day, you got to be around him. What made him, one of the greats when it came down to the little things in life?
Meticulous attention to detail. The ability, he had a lot of talent. He was already highly talented. I can remember when he transferred in before YouTube and TikTok and all this, and Reggie and I see him working with Rick Neuheisel on the intramural field, and I'm like, oh, damn, that our quarterback? And 6'4", a guy that looks like he can, play in any cowboy movie and not play dead, but play really alive. The thing that I always was struck by Troy was his ability to understand how to slow things down and how to make people better around him. And I think that was his meticulous attention to detail. And he learned how to be a leader once he left UCLA even more. You could see some of the things with Dallas, how he could be a hard ass, but he was always a guy that if you gave all your effort, he was going to give everything he had. And I think that was the part for me. Not only was his talent, which right away you could see, I've caught a lot of passes. I've caught from, Jeff George. I've seen Warren Moon when I was a young puppy, and Warren Moon had the tightest smile I've ever seen.
All famous.
But I don't know if anybody threw as nice a ball than Troy did to put you in position to make plays. And I heard Michael Irvin talking about this as well. His ability to know where to put the ball at where it needed to be consistently. And very seldom was he going to miss a passing window. And I think that's the part to me that was impressive right away. I knew he'd be a great player once he got to a place that gave him the tools and the weapons and protected him. But you could see it every day on our practice field. There'd be times the ball wouldn't hit the ground or deep balls. He was consistent every single day.
Side note, did Jeff George have the strongest arm you ever played with?
Jeff George could throw things. I've seen him make some throws that you were just like, whoa. The problem for Jeff was he never was in a system early on in his career that held him accountable. and he had some bad technique and habits early that he corrected in June when he got to June Jones. If June Jones had been with him earlier and he'd been on a team that really held him accountable, I think Jeff would have been a really great quarterback with the talent that he had. I didn't always see it consistently when he was with us because he had some bad habits that he had to learn how to play through, and you can't do that in the NFL.
No, you can't. I kind of compare him to like a Jay Cutler from this era where very strong arms, a lot of talent, but the undisciplined plays kind of, eroded their careers in some respects. Broadcast background, Buck. How did you get into the broadcast game? I'm someone that, is a part of this industry. I love it.
Yeah.
I want to hear how you got into it because it's kind of a way. I wasn't as good enough to play at the D1 level, but I love sports so much. And I love the debates about it and talking about it and kind of, just having your opinions out there for the world to hear. Talk to me about how you got into the broadcast space.
Well, I mean, being in California and LA in particular, you got a lot of people interviewing you afterwards, talking to you. And I had no problem with speaking. I don't mind talking. But I think what it was for me was that you hear people talking about the game that don't always know the game. And I felt like I've had some really good coaches and people that have taught me about football. And that's one of the reasons why I fell into it after I finished playing with the Colts. Started doing some radio, then started doing some TV. And, I actually interned at what is now Fox Sports 2 or Net, because I actually interned at Prime Ticket way back in the day when I was in college. I just kind of had I thought I liked it from what I saw and the people that kind of came out to interview us, whether it was Gene Washington or Jim Hill and some of those guys that had been former players, and then just spending time talking to them about how they got into the business. And then we had a bunch of people that were UCLA guys, whether it was Randy Cross or Dick Vermeil, Doc Walker was one of my influences early on, and just having the ability to reach out and spend time with people in the industry to kind of tell you what was really true and what wasn't. I think that's how I got into it, and I've enjoyed it. I still like calling ball and talking ball with folks and kind of helping people understand what the game is like. As much as it's changed, it's kind of stayed the same. It's still blocking, tackling, execution of how you do things, and how I have to beat my defensive guy and he wants to beat me every single play.
That's the beautiful thing about sports is that everything can change around you, but football, will stay the same in a lot of regards. Buck, loved having you on so much, man. Thank you for coming on. Can we get you on a UCLA game next year? That's all I ask, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I would love to call. I've never called a UCLA game.
We got to make this happen. We got to make this happen.
I've told Matt and Josh. I worked with Josh years ago. I said, look, guys, if I'm back at home, back at UCLA, I might come in and do it for free. I don't do things for free, but I come and call a game and have me and Wayne on the sideline. I don't care. Just have fun with you guys, because I think that would be a blast, especially with Deshaun now coming back and playing some of those Big Ten schools. I'd love to be a part of that.
Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. Buck, you're the greatest, man. Thank you for coming on. Look forward to having you on soon. And four's up, man. Four's up.
All right, man. Take care.